Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another podcast. We are excited about today's show, and we are excited to have you guys tuning in. You okay?
I am. I'm nervous. Keep going. Come on.
You
What we talking
nervous?
about? What we talking about today?
Today we have a very interesting topic, and we're gonna break it down and dish a little bit, and we're gonna offer a little personal insights about ourselves as well on this journey. So, I am your lovely co-host Nikema.
All right, and I'm Chris, and welcome to Break&Dish, where we always keep it relevant, relatable, and we keeps it real.
Real. No content is no topic is out of context. So we're gonna kick in today, and we're gonna talk about our topic for today is relationship burnout, and we're gonna talk about just trying to navigate those waters of is this a place where I'm gonna try to recover from a setback, or I'm just gonna hit reset on it all. So
What comes to mind when I hear that, and I wanted to play the song for this episode, but for copyright reasons and infringement, I ain't gonna have them suing me.
what's on?
But the song, when the girl start off with, "Truth is I'm tired,
Tamla Van.
options are few."
Ooh.
I mean, I can certainly identify with being in a space where you just say, "Man, I'm tired," you at a bad spot when you can't even get the RED out of it. I'm tired.
So burnout, but I mean burnout. We're speaking specifically to relationships,
Yeah.
but burnout is just you lost your motivation. You can't encourage anybody else. You can't even encourage yourself. And when you're talking about a relationship, I always talk about being just self accountable and responsible for yourself. But you have a duty to your partner in a relationship. So what do you do when you're just tired, but you're still expected to give, and you're still trying to figure out how to function in this relationship space? So that's what we're going to kind of touch on today. This isn't expert advice. We're just having some real conversations. I've personally been there. I've had friends that have been there where I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
Right.
Like, I'm just tired. I have nothing else to give. I've lost all creativity. I've lost all motivation. I can't invent another way to try to make this feel good for anybody else because it doesn't feel good for me.
Right. And the most humbling place as a leader to be is to encourage people to push, strive, continue, don't give up, and you quit. You found yourself where you just couldn't make it. And how do you continue to push forward in those situations, or how do you press reset? How do you get to a place of resetting even after you may have quit?
Well, I think before you make any decisions, it's always important to take inventory.
Yeah.
And one of the key indicators for me is, am I giving too much of myself to the point that I've lost myself? Giving in a relationship should be rewarding. We should be helping one another to grow. It's a place in you and I's relationship where I get great joy from that.
Yeah.
But when you get to a point where you do inventory, and it's a place where you like, I'm just giving all of me. I don't even know who me is anymore. Right. It's really time to step back and not even looking at the other person, but looking at yourself. Right. To do an inventory. Where are you? What is it that you want? Does this person even have the capacity to give you that?
My God.
And that's one thing we don't like to delve into, our partner's capacity, because at the end of the day, we chose it. So now we got to own that choice.
Yeah.
And we probably more times than not knew going in, this person didn't really have the capacity. They sufficed at the time, but really didn't have the capacity to give us or to be who and what we needed
or
them
even
to
to
be.
know what our own capacity
True.
is at that point. I think it's important for us in doing the assessments of that, for us to focus in on the self-assessment part.
Yes.
Because you can, one of my mottos is you can only control what you can control.
Yes.
And in controlling what you can control, sometimes the reality is that we we don't know ourselves very well.
Getting in a space where you're honest with yourself real time. And a lot of times we're not honest with ourselves, so it's hard to be honest with our partner.
Exactly.
And we haven't established great communication or open, honest communication that doesn't turn into a defensive argument, to be able to share. Or even have them self-navigate or help us to self-navigate those waters. But a lot of times we don't know. But when you do know, you have a duty to yourself and your partner to go down that road of conversation and that path.
Right. You know, some of the patterns that have resurfaced or that continue to surface is a direct result of me, either the choices, decisions that I've made, and I first have to start with me. But to your point of once I acknowledge that, also being in the position to have a real conversation with, you know, my partner, with, you know, that person, to say, this is where I am. This is how I feel. This is what's going on. And many times we don't do that. And we find ourselves in this pattern of exhaustive behavior, the things that burn us out. A holding pattern, because there are things that we either can't, for whatever reason, feel like we can address, and we don't address, or feels as though there are things that we have addressed. So how often do you kind of keep having the same conversations over and over again? And the frustration in having that same conversation over and over again. And what I realized about me when I started to do myself inventory, or continue to do myself inventory, because I do think that it's a continual process, because we're constantly changing, we're constantly evolving, because the world around us is changing. And I think oftentimes we get into this this notion that it is not us that need to change, or it's not us that's changing, it's them that's changing, you changing. And but the reality is we all are. And the problem that I had with me was getting to a point to where I didn't feel comfortable or safe, or I couldn't be vulnerable enough to speak my honest truth.
That's good. That's good. Especially the word safe. I think even before you can get to being vulnerable, you got to feel safe. And all of this sounds like great, relationship advice, but I want to add a little truth and grit to it. I know for me, in past times, having conversations over and over again, feeling like I was in that holding pattern, it turned into being passive aggressive. And that was me. Okay, since you act like you can't hear me, I'm just gonna stop this. I'm not gonna tell you why I'm stopping it. I'm not gonna tell you why I switched up. I feel like you should know. In reality, you've heard me say all of these things, but you really don't know why my behavior changed or why. Right. But I just became passive aggressive. Got silent. And when I got silent, then I just stopped doing. And I'm a giver by nature. Right. And giving, I get pleasure out of giving. So being a giver in a relationship, I ain't got nothing else to give. That's a huge shift for the person on the other end.
Right.
To have to contend with, like, what's wrong with you?
Right.
You're way different. Right. But it was not feeling safe to be vulnerable. Not even wanting to be vulnerable. Just switching almost to business mode. This is just how I'm going to deal with
right.
it.
It becomes a coping mechanism.
Yes.
It becomes a coping mechanism. And I used to say, and this is probably up until maybe a couple months ago, I used to talk about, the things that trigger us, certain things that either people say or do that'll cause that shift to happen, or, you'll go from this mode of I'm feeling like I'm constantly having the same conversation to, okay, if you want to do that, then now I'm shifting. And it wasn't until one of my little brothers, a friend of mine, is a therapist, and I saw him post something on social media once, and there was this comment, this dialogue, this whole thread, where people were kind of talking about this emotional thing, and I heard you some years ago talk about emotional intelligence and what that means for us, and how we sometimes don't understand where we are in that spectrum of being able to manage our own selves and our own emotions, as well as our own expectations. Sometimes we put expectations off on people and don't realize, and they don't realize the expectations that we put on them.
Yeah.
So when they don't measure up, we now respond to react, and we think that, well, I'm responding, reacting this way because you didn't do something that I wanted or needed for you to do. But they are completely oblivious. They don't know that, that they're being held to the standard. And what he was talking about in his dialogue was removing the notion of of these so-called triggers, because by giving power to someone else being able to push a button says that I'm giving someone else power over my emotions, when I'm the one responsible for how I feel. Nobody else is. So I'm responsible for my happiness. How many times have I put somebody else in charge of my happiness?
Ooh, you better preach.
How many times have I put somebody else in charge for the way I feel? And I'm probably the biggest person. And I know as a preacher, as a person that believes in Jesus Christ, I don't subscribe a whole lot to zodiacs and all them signs stuff. I was born May 29th, and my birthday is coming up. I'm a Gemini, and just some days it's like, I felt like I was in this mood swing. Like some days I wake up and I'm like this, and other days and I'm going, no, don't do it. But in my self-assessment, I had to get to that place of realizing I own that. That's me, and I have to take account for that and what the impacts are to those that are around me. How am I influencing or affecting my environment by me fluctuating in me not having a good grasp of it? And what it led me to some years ago, seeking out therapy, seeking out having somebody to talk to about that and what that looked like for me. And I know that's a dark cloud, and maybe that's another conversation that we'll get to at some point. But I know that, especially in our community, we don't advocate enough for therapy. But it's in the moments of burnout that we realize the necessity of being able to have that kind of outlet.
I used to say this often, and especially when I minister. I don't want to be a miracle every day. And I don't want to be existing from miracle to miracle. When we let ourselves get in a crisis mode without taking care of it when we recognize it, now we need something dramatic to happen.
That's good.
A miracle, absolutely, for something uncontrollable. But if we spiral it to the point that we're in crisis mode all the time, you're just existing, hanging on from one miracle, hoping and praying to the next miracle versus getting ahead of it. And to your point of getting a therapist, being able to talk that through with someone who's trained, absolutely encourage that. Whether it's youth and teenagers all the way through adulthood, sometimes we need help to be able to navigate life, and sometimes it pivots on us. And we just like, what do I do? What do I do? And the first thing that happens is our emotions take over. We start responding emotionally. Our actions are guided by emotions, and that's a dangerous place to be in. Because, as you said, your emotions can fluctuate from moment to moment. So we find ourselves, mine used to be overspending and shopping. I still like to shop, but I shop within budget. I like a good sale, a great sale. But it became how I felt good. That was the thing that brought me some joy and some peace. And we'll gravitate towards things that aren't necessarily good for us, trying to fill the void versus dealing with the thing that's right there before us. And in relationships, that's critical, because when you deal with it, and you have a relationship where you have good communication, your partner should be someone who's willing to go on the journey with you and able to walk with you and hold you, and also hold you accountable. We got to stop having all these yes people in our lives. We got to have people that'll tell us the hard things. And if I need to hear something, if I need to, a gentle but firm critique, then why wouldn't I want to hear it from you?
That's amazing, because for some of us, especially, as adults now, we have to go back and unpack a whole bunch of stuff to get back to the roots of where a lot of this stuff originated in us, like why we think the way we think, why we tend to lean certain ways, why we respond emotionally to certain things. And a lot of it goes back to either childhood issues, traumas. All of us got baggage to some degree. But again, without having that professional help, we're all left to try to self-diagnose. And if you're not a mechanic, but you're trying to self-diagnose your car, you're going to be putting gas in the oil. Listen, I had this one funny story.
Need a carburetor.
Listen, I have most of my uncles are mechanics to some degree. But one of my uncles used to fix on my first car. And I called myself one day, I watched him enough where I felt like, I knew what I was doing. And this goes back to, I'm a tied in, watch this. So he said to me, man, you got to make sure you keep oil in your car. Okay. No problem. So I called myself one day, pulling into the little AutoZone spot, whatever it was, and going in, getting some oil. The guy asked me, how much oil you need? I don't know. Let me get about 4 or 5 of them. He said, okay. So
you ain't got no oil in the car, Chris?
Listen, I ain't bothered to check the oil. So I go out and I get the little funnel and I'm putting oil in. I put the first one in, put the second one in. I'm looking down inside of the oil thing, and they're like little mechanical things in there, right? Like almost like divots in it. And I'm thinking I'm supposed to fill it up to the divot. So the second one didn't fill it. So I put the third one in. It didn't fill it. It ain't even close to the divot.
Bless your heart.
So I got another thing of oil, and I had 4 things of oil. And I went back in. I think I got a 5th. I ain't trying to not exaggerate, but I went in. I think I put like 5 quarts of oil in it. And I'm like, well, shoot, man, it ain't filling up. So I just put the cap back on. I just drive it over to him. Because I don't know. I'm putting oil in. I'm looking up under the car like it ain't running out. Like, where's the... Okay. I get in the car and turn the car on. Boom. What was that? I had one of my boys from college with me. We were struggling in college days. What was that? I don't know. Get on the car.
You gonna drive it anyway.
We're in Columbia on 2 Notch Road. If y'all know what Columbia is, 2 Notch Road. From where I was to my uncle's house was probably like a good 4 or 5 miles. I pull out, got on 2 Notch Road. I mean, a big cloud of smoke. I mean, smoke from where I first started the car to where I ended up at my uncle's house. But it all came because I didn't know what I was doing, but I called myself trying to fix my own problem. Instead of allowing the professional to guide me through it. And when we're burnt out, it's like I thought my car was burnt out of oil. Sometimes we do ourselves more injustice and do ourselves more of a disservice by trying to figure it out ourselves. And if you could figure it out yourself, then God would have made you all-encompassing. But he didn't. God made us specifically in a manner where we all have to rely on one another. No one person is an island unto himself. But at least, like you said, help me to be accountable to me. And the problem with that sometimes is I know my car's smoking, but I don't need you driving up next to me saying, hey, your car's smoking.
I'm just trying to help.
I don't need you to help me. I know my car's smoking. But that's what we do sometimes.
Yes. So I think that in talking through partnership, when we talk about relationship burnout, a lot of times we burn ourselves out because we keep trying to fix it doing the exact same thing. And we think that I told you once, I told you 5 times, you should get it by now. So let me tell you 2, 3 more times. And we're exhausting ourselves and burning ourselves out. And you have to get to a point where after your self-evaluation, after your self-inventory, that you should try some counseling, individual and together, to see where we're going. You may both come to the mutual understanding that this ain't it at this point in our lives. Or you may get to a place where you rediscover what commitment looks like. I will say for me personally, now at this age, compared to 10, 15 years ago, my understanding of commitment was very different.
Yes.
But we have to be willing to talk it out and have conversations. And everybody's not there.
Yeah.
And you got to be all right with that.
Yeah.
I think what I love so much about our relationship is that we've always had great, open, honest communication. So I've never felt like I had to be anybody else.
Right.
So from when we first met to now, I'm the same person that you've gotten in contact. I've grown, but I haven't changed. I'm still Nakima, and I feel the same for you. You're still Chris. It wasn't a bait and switch.
Right.
We were comfortable enough in ourselves, and we had that open communication. We have moved some counseling into it that has been amazing.
Yes.
And what we thought was an already wonderful relationship, oh my goodness. And it gave me a whole new understanding and appreciation for what commitment and covenant in a relationship looks like.
Just the idea that we realize that we first have to understand what it means to be true to us. I recall, in some of the early conversations that you and I had years ago, me being, as transparent as I could to say, look, but I'm messed up. Like at the end of the day, I've gone through some things. I've been divorced twice. And, I have, even among and aside from that, I have my own things that I've been trying to work through, that I've been continuously working through. And that is to express the fact that I've been committed to doing my work on me. And, it's been a journey, and it still is a journey. And it's the most incredible, and like I said, transparent place to be in. But you've made it such a safe space for us to just talk about even uncomfortable things, things we've gone through, things that we face even today. And I'm not, one that likes to talk about my day a lot. And you like to talk about your day.
I got to debrief 30 minutes, but he listens. We get it. He gets it.
And I'm realizing that that's important for you.
I agree that we've had a very open and transparent relationship and courtship. But the one thing that I really liked about you was you were upfront about your intentions, where you were, but you also said, I've done a lot of work to get to this point. And it's brought me to a place where at 40, I ain't gonna tell you age, years of age, I am who I am as a man. Like I'm still growing, but this is it. And I'm not gonna twist it or tangle it up to try to please somebody else. And I was like, that's the best gift you can give a partner, is to be all right with you. And you're all right with you. It has to sit well with your partner, but it has to sit well with you. And that was so refreshing for me. Like, all right, he is confident in who he is, so I ain't gonna have to do all these extra things to make him feel comfortable. And it was evident because whatever environment you moved into, you were very comfortable. It was so fluid like water, from being present with me at a work event to us going to functions to us supporting each other through funerals. It has been exactly the same person. Our emotions and the things that we go through change us and cause us to shift, but it's a place where you're consistently you, and I appreciate that. Yeah. And I think I've gotten the best version of you in doing that. And likewise, I think you've gotten the best version of me, and I had to sit down and do some hard work with myself and say, you're here because you made these decisions, because you allowed it, but I'm okay with where I am. And I didn't give up. You gave up on love. I ain't doing this no more. Listen. Oh, he was
Listen. And I was going don't do that. That might be another topic for another episode for us to talk about, the readiness part of it. Mm-hmm. I was adamant I was not doing this again. And, the dates I've had, and, the relationships, even in between. I was like, nah, listen, I need you to understand. I'm not doing this again, ever. I'm not doing it. And then the Lord, certainly taught me a long time ago about never saying never. But I can certainly say that when we met, being comfortable with me was important because it was a place of, I felt like new discovery for me. And having been burnt out, made some promises to myself first that I had to see through. And a part of that promise was, again, me being committed to doing the work for me, not for you, not for another person, but doing the work for me. And, and we still together.
Still together. It has been an incredible journey, but I think both of us, myself being twice divorced as well, just in transparency, have gone through those relationship burnout areas where we feel like, this ain't it. Or in my case, some place where I feel like I stayed too long because I didn't want to do the work and deal with me and deal with my decisions that I made and deal with what I was and was not getting, just still trying to, like a 4x4 in the mud. Like, I know there's enough going here to push this. And for some relationships it is. I'm by no means advocating for that. But what I'm saying is there's work in between. If you feel burnout on your relationship, there's some work that needs to be done, because all you're going to do is take that baggage right into the next situation. Exactly right. And it's always going to feel heavy. It's always going to feel uncomfortable. Exactly. So if you're feeling burnout, you're tired, you're not motivated, you feel like you don't have any more to give to that relationship, pause. Yeah. Pause.
That's good.
Pause and do your work first before you shift, before you make any major decisions.
That's good. I have some people that have known of my situation in terms of being divorced, and have privately said to me, "Hey, how do you know when you're there?" And again, by no means do we advocate divorce. It's situations that happen. Sometimes some situations in your life you need to get out of, and you need to be mindful of what those situations are. But in other cases where you've hit a rough patch and a rough spot, divorce shouldn't be an immediate out. And in recognizing that, and although I've had my own reasons, when being asked that question, my response every time has been, if you're asking me, you're not there. Mm-hmm. Go back and do your work. Go back and fix it. Go back and do whatever you need to do to push forward in it.
But you have to have a capacity to be in any relationship, to give. One of the things I'm always asking you is, what can I do for you? Right. What can I do for you? And that's the giving part of me. But if you're always the receiver, or you're always the giver, that's an issue. Right. I think with us, we both have naturally given personalities, so sometimes we struggle. No, let me. But we're finding a balance on how to receive from the other person. So recognize your patterns. Get the assistance that you need to work through what you haven't been able to go through. Deal with your past traumas. Don't project that on somebody else. And deal with where you are right now in your life. Before you make any of those major decisions. But burnout can be real. It can force you to try to run for a quick solution to fix it. But that little soothing balm doesn't take care of the wound that's underneath. It still has to heal.
That's great. Oh, my God, that's amazing. It's a great recap as well. And my last piece on that would be, out of the four things you mentioned, the fifth for me would be the word that you inserted in there, and that was balance. Find your balance. Find out what fits and works for you, and be honest with what that balance looks like. Sometimes we want for other people to fill the deficits and fill the voids, but that they aren't meant to fill the void. That you have to be a whole, complete person.
Yes.
This whole notion, we talked about this whole notion of you complete me, and you better be complete before. Do your work for you so you'll know what that looks and feels like, and that way you don't put another person in a deficit trying to satisfy something that they have no clue of what it is that they're trying to feel. So That's it for me. I'm done preaching for the night because ain't nobody sending no offerings. I'm playing. But thank you all. Anything else that you?
No, that's it.
Share?
Great conversation. I love your point about don't cause someone else to be at a deficit because you haven't taken the time to do what you need to. But nothing else. Another great episode, great topic. Drop us some comments. Drop us some topic ideas. We don't propose to be relationship experts, but we have had our share of challenges, and we've done some self-work, still doing counseling, just to make sure that we are giving of our best selves, and what we receive from this relationship is also fulfilling for us as well.
Indeed, very well said. Thank you. You're so beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, handsome.
Yes. Thank you all again. And again, remember to like, share, hit the notification bell, subscribe.
Yes.
Make sure, again, leave us some comments so we can shout you out. All right. Thanks again. Love y'all. And until next time.
We out.
Peace.
Baby, can you listen?